The Mongolian adventures continue with more Russian van rides, horses, and this time camels. We're starting off at Khuvsgul Lake, which is the largest freshwater lake in Mongolia and contains roughly 1% of the fresh water in the world. Khuvsgul Lake is located in the north of Mongolia, very close to the Russian border. So once again, we hopped into the Russian van from the reindeer herders, and it was about 12 hours to get back to Maroon. From there, we took a private taxi, which was about 1.5 to 2 hours. We lucked out with this accommodation because it was just the two of us in this entire room. And then we spent some downtime planning the rest of our trip to Mongolia. We weren't sure if we wanted to do another tour or if it was time to change countries. We decided to venture out and walk around the lake. We didn't book a tour or anything, we just went on our own. And one of the things that I love about Mongolia that I've said time and time again is that there are never any people around. It always feels like you have the whole place to yourself just because so many tourists don't come here and it is really off the beaten path. Also, it was incredibly windy these days, so this whole video has to be a voiceover because all you can hear is the wind and all the audio. Hence me wearing this puffer jacket in June. But just walking around, we managed to see so many animals. They were just out in the open, there was no fence, so we were a little bit worried if it would be a safety issue, but it was completely fine. The one thing I will say about Mongolia though is that there is poop everywhere, which makes sense because you're always in nature and there's so many free grazing animals. So just make sure that you wear maybe hiking boots or shoes that you aren't completely in love with because they will be covered in poop. So Khuvsgul Lake is 267 meters deep and about 136 kilometers long, so this is a huge lake. In the wintertime, it actually completely freezes over and the ice thickness is about 1 meter deep. In the summer, you can do activities like hiking, horse riding, and you can even visit the nomadic reindeer herder families. Now, there is never any dull moments with transport here in Mongolia, and we saw this gentleman got his boat stuck and he drove his car in the water trying to drag it out, but unfortunately after many tries he was not able to get the boat out. Now the lake itself is quite beautiful. It had so many different blue layers and colors to it, and I guess it is called the Blue Pearl for a reason. I really wanted to go for a swim, but I don't know if it's ever warm enough to go into these waters. Would you dare jump into Khuvsgul Lake for a little dip? You walk down this plank, but you pretty much get the same view as you do from like over there. So there's not much to see. The water is actually quite dirty there, which is sad. Lots of plastic and stuff, but it looks great on video. I think this is a popular vacationing spot amongst locals. We only saw 2 other tourists at our accommodation and the rest were Mongolian. I think this is a good stopover to stay for 1 or 2 nights if you're already in the area and you made the trip up to Maroon, because there is quite a contrast from the capital city and the countryside. Here we were looking for some public toilets because Christina had to go to the washroom, but we were trying to decide if it was worth it or not. Those 3 stalls were squatty potties, as you could see through the holes, and then here it was also a squat, but it kind of had a puddle going on, and I think in the end she decided not to use it. Overall, Khuvsgul Lake was a great stopover until we headed back to the main city in Ulaanbaatar. The first thing that we did when we got back was visit the Chinggis Khan Statue, which is 40 meters tall. It is the largest equestrian statue in the world. And then we combined that with a trip to Terelj National Park. We were really lucky. Right at the entrance of the park, there were a lot of horses grazing, and when I started to take a video, the 2 herders showed up to come get all of their animals. So we got to see the horses, the yaks, and even surprisingly camels, which are native to Mongolia. It's like they knew we were coming and all of the action and movement happened as soon as we arrived. Had we shown up maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, all of the horses and animals would have been gone and we wouldn't have had anything to see. I think visiting Chinggis Khan Statue and the national park are a great day trip combination. I really recommend that if you're looking just to do something outside of the city. They do have public transportation options, but I think it would just be easier to hire a driver for the day because the schedule is quite limited and it's not so easy to use public transportation in Mongolia. We spent a few more days in Ulaanbaatar, and in the end we decided to go for one more trip in the Altai Mountains all the way in the west of Mongolia, so we hopped on a 24-hour bus to Bayan-Ölgii, but of course the bus broke down. Okay, I think the bus is repaired, so after 24 hours of driving, being here for like half an hour, we're getting back on. Yeah. Okay, I think it's good. We were quite literally in the middle of nowhere and on a true adventure.
SOS!
The bus has broken down again.
Twice. And there's no sound. And there's no sound.
We're stuck in the middle of nowhere. It's been more than 24 hours. No service. Let's see what happens. These guys were our only source of entertainment. There was no cell service and the bus ride ended up being around 28 to 30 hours. We were staying at our tour guide's house and of course as soon as we got off the bus we were thrown onto another Russian van for God knows how many more hours. We were about 10 people in the van and there were a lot of kids, and it's really funny because to pass the time I like to make up stories in my head about different families and who belongs to who, but you'll find that a lot of times nobody in the van is related even though they're holding the kids, but they're really not theirs. It's just a way to save space and cram more people inside. Another pee break in the middle of nowhere. Literally just sand. We were driving and then they saw this abandoned car and we pulled over for what reason, I have no idea. And now we're just stuck here. This is our Russian van, my favorite. We've been through so much together. Everywhere. After 32 hours of straight travel, we finally made it to our tour guide's house just in time for breakfast and we were dead tired. Honestly, I think if you calculated all the time, I spent about a week on buses while I was in Mongolia. So for breakfast, we tried their different cheese products that they made at home because they had their own cows. And we were served the traditional Mongolian milk tea, sute chai, which I dipped the bread in for some extra flavor. Honestly, to me, the tea tastes like a savory soup, and I covered the bread in kaimak, which is a rich creamy cheese that we have in Serbia too. My grandma actually makes it at home. After a well-deserved nap, we ventured out to explore the village with the tour guide's children. They were so cute and the perfect guides. Now, since we are all the way in the west of Mongolia, we're really close to the border of Kazakhstan, and the family that we stayed with actually spoke Kazakh. They didn't speak Mongolian and they consider themselves the Kazakh people. Don't quote me on this, but someone even told me that this region is considered the true and authentic Kazakhstan because it's not as modernized as compared to the country of Kazakhstan itself. So the gur that we actually stayed in here was Kazakh style, which was different compared to the Mongolian one. It was a lot larger and a lot more colorful in terms of prints. Getting to Bayan-Ölgii was an exhausting journey as you saw, but I have to say it was my favorite part of Mongolia, especially the Altai Mountains tour. So if you are thinking about it, I would say it's 100% worth it. After we explored the beautiful nature and took lots and lots of videos of the cows, the kids really wanted to play and they asked me to invent a game, so my teacher brain kicked in and I said, okay, let's make a competition to see who can build the highest pile of rocks in 1 minute. Now let me tell you, this is a lot more difficult than it looks. All the rocks are different shapes and it's hard to balance them to make a tower. I felt like I had a pretty good stat going, but looking back at this footage, it's hilarious to see Christina only had 2 rocks at this point. And it's safe to say that we did not stand a chance against these kids. We were absolutely demolished and the little boy won. His technique was unique, but it got the job done. But I'm sure they play with rocks all the time. So we slowly decided to head back to the house, and it was just in time because the mom was milking the cows, so she let us take a video. Very reminiscent of the reindeer milking. So stay tuned for part 4 as I take you with me on my 7-day tour through the Altai Mountains.